All right. Welcome, everyone. I hope you guys had a good lunch. My name is Christoph Straub, and I'm the Industry Programming Manager here at TIFF, subbing in for Renee right now, who is going on a break, deservedly so. This is our first lightning round talk of our co-production day here at the conference today, and I'm really excited to have two prolific speakers from two of the big European funds here today. We have Isabel Davis from BFI in the UK, and we have Julien Isanou from the French Film Fund, National Film Fund CNC. And I think you'll learn a lot today about how to access funding and tax incentives from those two countries, two of the biggest co-production countries in Europe, and with films, a lot of films here at the festival, both of them. So it's really exciting to have them here. Hosting this session will be Paula Devonshire, Toronto-based producer who has a film here at the festival as well with Wet Bum. Has had plenty of films here at the festival, also went through our TIFF studio program. So thank you so much for hosting this session, Paula. And with that, over to you.
Thank you very much. It would be really helpful just to ask everyone initially their sort of level of experience, just so that it would help gauge the level of presentation that Julian and Isabel give. So how many people in the audience are producers? How many people have produced a film before? How many have done a co-production before? Official or unofficial? Either? Okay. All right, that's good. So there'll be lots to tell. And generally, sort of, is everyone, how many people are Canadian? Is there any Americans in the room? Europe? Okay. South America? Australia? New Zealand? All right. Okay, this is good. This is very helpful. Okay. So, amazing. Thank you very much. So, co-productions it is. That's what we're going to learn. Julian, you're going to go first. Julian is... I'm just going to read your bio here. So Julian is from the CNC, which is the Centre National de Cinéma, and he was hired by the CNC in 2001 after a career in the airline industry, which sounds very interesting. I don't know how you make that transition. I don't know. Which airline was it, can we ask?
It was small airlines in the South Pacific.
He was first appointed at the CEO cabinet to deal with general issues. In 2007, he was offered his present position, where he manages international co-production. His task is to develop bilateral relations with all the countries France has signed an agreement with, encouraging foreign producers to work with French partners. He is in charge with negotiating new agreements with countries willing to establish a privileged relationship with France in the field of film. He is also the French delegate to the European Co-Production Fund, Eurimage. So welcome, Julian. You have a
Thank you.
Lovely presentation to give us.
Okay. So I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll be as quick as I can, because otherwise it would be boring. So I'll try to explain how we support production with the CNC. Basically, it's divided between what we call certified films or French films and foreign, pure foreign films. For films that are certified, I mean, that have the stamp of CNC on them, there are rules to access this level of certification. We have more financing tools than for foreign pictures, obviously. We have, for French-speaking pictures, I'm talking about feature only. I hope you don't have too many expectations about TV production, because I'm mostly speaking about feature production. The advance on receipts is for mostly French-speaking feature projects. And when you're making a fiction feature with a majority of French language, and you go to the certification process, you can pretend to the benefit of a selective scheme that's called advance on receipts. It's a free loan for the production of your picture, and it can be up to 700,000 euros. It can be the first money that you raise, and approximately between 50 and 60 pictures in France are supported by advance on receipts, and foreign directors have already been supported by advance on receipts. Tsai Ming-yong, the Taiwanese director who shot in Paris in French, was supported by advance on receipts. And there are several cases. Asghar Farhadi, the Iranian director who made The Past in French, was supported by advance on receipts, etc. So there are possibilities for Canadian directors, any director in the world who wants to make an official co-production with France and shoot in French. This scheme is available. Producers can benefit also for those films that are certified. They can benefit from a system of automatic support. They have a kind of savings account with us, and they can use that money only to make a new picture. So it stays in an account, and it can be only used for the purpose of making a new feature. The money of this automatic account, this savings account, is raised with the previous pictures that were released in theaters, and according to the success, the commercial success of the picture, you have more money on your account, and then you can use it for the next pictures. We have a scheme for pictures that use 3D technology or CGI. It's called New Technologies in Production. You have to be a certified French film to ask for that money. Wim Wenders was supported by this. I can't remember all the titles, but basically it can be up to 200,000 euros if you have a quite, challenging technology that you use for your picture. Mostly, the most money that you can raise is for pictures shot in 3D. Yes. So for foreign directors who shoot in their language, let's say an Indian director shooting in India, like Ritesh Batra, our favorite supported picture. Maybe some of you have seen the Lunchbox, Ritesh Batra's film. It was supported by Aide au Cinéma du Monde. So I brought leaflets, pamphlets of Aide au Cinéma du Monde. So it's our scheme for foreign directors who shoot in their language or in the language of the country where they shoot. For example, we have Mohsen Mahmalbaf, who's an Iranian director, is shooting in Georgia. He's going to use the Georgian language for his shooting, so he's eligible for that fund. And it doesn't necessarily have to go through the official certification process. So World Cinema Support is available for pictures that are foreign pictures, a Japanese film, a Canadian film, a Brazilian film, that cannot or do not want to go through this difficult process of official certification, but still they can pretend to the benefit of that scheme. It's money that's a grant. It's not a loan. It's a grant. The money is given away. It can be up to 250,000 euros, so it can be quite a lot of money. And the idea is that the French producer, who's your partner, applies with a French version of the script, and if the project is awarded, half of the money has to be spent. At least half of the money has to be spent in France. I will pass this. It's too much detail, I think, to explain the certification. To explain very briefly, to be certified French, you have to make an official co-production with France. You have to use a treaty and then validate points on two grids, a European grid and a French grid. That's too much detail, I think. Not very interesting. But I'm ready to answer more questions if you have some. Yes, the grids. The French grid, okay. Also, this PowerPoint presentation is available for you if you're interested in digging into those details.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Does the point structure that you were just showing change depending on the percentage of participation? So if it's a minority co-production, 20%, do you still have to? Or is it a sliding scale of points?
So if you make, let's say you're This is the obligation for the French partner of the film, to validate a certain number of points. Let's say it's a co-production between Canada and France, for example, and the French partner is a minority partner with, let's say, 20%. He still has to gather at least 25 points on the French grid. There is no, the threshold is not lower when you have a smaller share of the picture. This is to explain how World Cinema Support works. There are four deadlines every year for this fund. The idea is that you find a French partner, a French co-producer, before applying, but I would say a long time before you apply, because the ideal way to apply is really to, ideally to at least co-develop a little bit, have a discussion, but a deep discussion on the script, then bring it to us, and with a good translation of the script in French. So it's better always that the French producer take care of the translation in French, because they can see that the French is perfect. Why I'm insisting on this? Because it's a quite competitive fund, and for example, for debut directors, for one session, you might have more than 70 applications. And the people who read it, who read the script, you just have to put yourself in their shoes. It's so painful to read bad French or bad English. so you just have to pay that to bear that in your mind. Also, don't go too early. It's better to apply when you have reached a good stage of development. And when you're, I would say, I think that it's better to go with a shooting script rather than second, third, fourth draft. Really with the final draft. Yes, so it's divided between first-time and second-time directors. For first-time directors, in general, it's approximately 70 applications per session, and confirmed directors approximately 30-35 applications. And out of those two sub-committees, chapters, we support, let's say, 5-6 projects. I'm looking at Valérie Mourou because Valérie is representing Institut Français. She's the head of the cinema department of Institut Français, and we manage Aide au Cinéma du Monde together with Institut Français. It's a CNC Institut Français financing tool. And the team of Valérie takes care of the debut directors, and we take care of confirmed directors. But out of each competition, we support approximately, yes, 5 to 6 projects. So you can see it's quite competitive, and yes, it's basically a 10% success rate. Yes. First, the scripts go to readers committees. It's so people who read, who are hired only to read the scripts and have discussions with the members of our committee. And together, readers and members of the committee pass a certain number of those projects to the plenary committees, also divided between debut and confirmed. And then the plenary committee, that's composed of industry people, it's directors, scriptwriters, critics. They have debates, the discussions on the qualities of the applications, mostly the script. It's mostly based on script, but also for, of course, they watch short films that you can provide with your dossier, or features for confirmed directors, and they try to evaluate and identify the best projects. It's not a perfect system, but I had a conversation last night with a French producer who was very unhappy because his project with a South African director had not been supported, and he was and he was blaming the system of the committees. Like you shouldn't do that. Okay, what's your suggestion? So the suggestion was an automatic system, so we should support all the projects that are brought to us, and I don't believe in that. But it's true that we might. It's something that you may think about, is how we select our members of those committees. Is it a good idea to take a critic? A good idea to take a director, a producer? And it's not easy to build, but.
Can I ask a quick question? What is the committee looking for specifically? Like, I know there's a lot of cultural test and sort of having French elements.
Not in our system. We
No?
don't have a cultural test. No, that's a very important point. Your story has to be genuine. It doesn't have to have a French element in it. We don't want to see a French actress or the Eiffel Tower in your film. It has to be local. It has to be your story. But of course, it has to also be an international project, meaning, and that's how useful the co-production can be during the development stage, is how you can avoid, thanks to your partner, avoid all the the encrypted parts of the script, all those things that only you can understand. And may I tell just this anecdote? I always tell the same story. Probably Valerie has already heard it, but I was in a festival in South Africa, in Durban, and they were showing this film they were very proud of. And because the director had taken 10 years, I think, to make it. And honestly, so there was screening, was packed, and the picture was perfect in terms of production. And the image, the costumes, the music, it was beautiful. But I understood absolutely nothing of the story. And I think it's a shame, because what's the result of that? It's impossible to sell it abroad. So what do you want? You can want a picture for your own domestic market, but then don't co-produce. It's useless. And it's perfectly legitimate and right to produce for domestic markets. But if you want to make a picture that's international, that travels, goes to festivals, then you have to think a little differently. It can still be a very local story, but you have to avoid those things that cannot be understood abroad. So it has to be universal in a way. I mean, and the understanding has to be. Okay, so yeah, that was your question. So those are statistics. You see many applications from Europe, Latin America, very few applications coming from Asia at this time, few from North America. Those are the numbers of applications for the past 2 years. Here you have the success, the project supported. As you can see, it's very interesting to see that Asia brings us quite a few projects, in fact, but they are very successful, and that's where you see the issue of script. There are parts of the world where there is no culture of script or little. And it makes a big difference for us, because we are in a system of the French financing system is really based on the script. We have, for example, we have very few applications from Korea, because in Korea, I had many discussions with Korean producers. They don't want to write. They're not interested in writing. At the best, they give you a 30-page treatment. But they don't work like that. And for us, it's impossible to co-produce with them, because it's not our way to do it. We don't know how to do elsewhere, you know? So, yeah. And it's also very interesting to see that the scripts coming out of South America, and mostly from Argentina and Chile, are amazing in terms of the quality of the writing and the originality of the stories. And so it's interesting to think about it and why, you know? So those are the success rates. You can see Central Asia and Southern and Eastern Asia are very successful. And is that the last slide? No. Yes, I wanted to show you basically how we build a financing plan in France between the soft money and the hard money. That's mostly those lines for the French-speaking pictures. Producers can come to us to be supported for writing, development, production. We even have a tax credit, and then they go to the market, try and raise some MGs for distribution, video, sales. They go to broadcasters for pre-sales and co-production, and then we have other tools. This is the ideal finance plan, and of course, for foreign directors, it's a lot more difficult to raise. Is it 10 minutes for me or for the whole? Okay, so I have time actually, but so you can see, I'm rushing, but so you better have questions now. And what else? No, that's it. Yeah. So.
Questions right over here. Wait, can we just wait for the mic, please? Someone have a microphone? You can keep your microphone. Great, thank you. Great.
Just a very quick question. Are you aware of a treaty with Australia, with the French?
We could produce with Australia.
Okay.
We do, yeah. We have an agreement, and we don't do many pictures because it's not easy between so distant countries. But and now we are renegotiating the agreement.
Sure.
Right back there.
Hi, I have a similar question, but do you have a treaty with the United States?
No country has a treaty with the United States. No.
But you did have some new treaties announced this year. Was it Greece and Portugal? Is it?
We have 55 treaties.
Yeah.
Yeah, and recently we created bilateral funds.
Funds, okay.
Yeah, with Portugal, Greece. Yes.
So does that mean that you don't produce films with like American film producers and directors?
There's no co-production with the States, but there are partnerships, yes. Shootings, yes. I mean, yeah, the last Arnaud Desplechin picture was shot in the US. When you do that, you need to work with the line producer in the States. But he's not really a financial partner or a co-producer. He's not someone who's going to take the American market and leave you your market. It's not the usual philosophy of co-production. It's more a partnership with a line producer who might go and raise some maybe local tax incentives, for example, and take care of the shooting. But we don't have real proper co-productions with the States, no.
So that means the producers are mostly from places like Canada, but the line producers are.
Yes, yeah. Now, for example, we were co-producing the Joachim Trier, the new Joachim Trier picture, the Norwegian director who made Oslo 31st of August, and he's shooting in New York, and so in New York there's a line producer, but the co-production is a European one. There are several cases of European shootings in America, but it's never a co-production.
In the back there with the glasses?
Thank you. Apologies if you've already mentioned this, but what's the level of French content required that you look for?
The level that we require is a level of technical and artistic participation. It's never in the content, and let's be clear. It's not in the story, the script, no. But if you want to make an official co-production with us, you have to prove that there are enough French elements. So we count that with a point system. And for example, let's say you use a French DOP, it's 1 point. He's a cameraman, 1 more point. A French sound engineer, 1 point, etc. So we count like this. So the minimum is 25 points For example, the French company brings 10 points. The sound post-prod 5 points. So it's, yeah, that's the idea.
Great, right here.
For submissions, because they're competitive, if you fail in a particular round, are you able to reapply with the same submission?
Yes, you can reapply once, but it's better to reapply after rewriting. And in general, you have recommendations or comments on your script to help you rewrite if you're ready to do that. And if you fail even the second time, you can come back for a post-prod support once the picture is shot
So
and
if it is a
edited.
particularly competitive round, that'll get noted in the feedback of this was strong, try later, or Just, I mean,
have a
again,
look
with
at page
70
33.
productions,
The sex scene is too long.
yeah. Okay. Never.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding because there's no censorship. But
Two. Do you have time for one more question?
Sure.
Maybe two. In the automatic funding that you talked about before, the automatic bank account, you mentioned commercial success. Is there any other kinds of measures that are put into that other than commercial success, critical success or something? Anything like that?
we don't have a refined system like in Canada
Okay.
or in Belgium, where the career of the film in festivals, for example, is taken into account, or maybe critics, or no, we don't have that.
Okay, you're right. So that was my reference,
No, it's not very
Telefilm's
refined.
success index. And my second question is, do you have any strategies or programs to introduce producers to each other? French producers with foreign producers?
We have very little things. Mostly we try and encourage the participation in the Cannes Film Festival, which is the best platform to meet French producers. But we also, I organize sometimes workshops in Paris, but for specific countries. For example, this year we're organizing a workshop with Mexico. So we have 8 producers coming from Mexico with projects, and we organize meetings. But it's not really our prerogative to organize the meets. Yeah, it's mostly thanks to business platforms and festivals that you can meet, or through your business connections. And also, I always encourage producers to have a look at this at the results. Let's say you're interested in Aide au Cinéma du Monde. Have a look at the results, the projects that were supported. You have the titles, the names of the producers, so you can see who are the French producers working on such and such countries, directors, etc. And it can be inspiring. It can give you ideas of the type of companies you can work with. Yeah.
Great. I think it's time for you, Isabelle. Thank you very much. Thank you, Julian. That was great. Isabelle is from the British Film Institute called the BFI, aptly named, and you're the head of international. You transferred to the BFI in 2011 after joining the UK Film Council in late 2006. She combines an editorial role in the Film Fund with responsibility for the BFI's international strategy, coordinating the full range of the organization's activities. Based on our discussion yesterday, you have a real eye to looking for international talent and how they can work with UK productions and co-productions. And
Great, thank you very much. Yes, I guess thanks very much for the introduction, and not to say too much more about myself, but I'm head of international, so my role encompasses a lot of our international activity. And the BFI is a large organisation. It's been going for 80 years. It's been the home of film culture in the UK for all of that time, and it's only recently become the production funding agency on top of that, and it has the remit to look after film from all perspectives. So I have both a role that is strategic and oversees all of that, but also a very particular role within the Film Fund, which is one of the sort of staples of the public funding scene in the UK. So my intention today is to give you a rundown of the public funding landscape, and a bit like Julien, the way in which you are technically able to qualify for that support. You'll see as well that obviously the technical side is only half of it, very much as it works in France. We're very, very talent driven in our decision making, but let's get going anyway. It's interesting. I wouldn't normally assume that we should ask the question how to co-produce, because here we are at Toronto Film Festival. I think we all know that there's many very good reasons to do it. But in the UK in particular, you know, once we've got past the philosophical positives around sharing risk and upside in the creative collaboration, we're looking at some very particular types of funding that come with official British status in the UK. Those are the UK Film Tax Relief, the BFI Film Fund, which is a national public fund. We have funds in 3 of the nations of the UK, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. And again, and this is somewhat later down the line, but for British films and co-productions that are selected for some major film festivals, we're able to offer their sales companies support at those markets. So it can have an effect at that stage in the making of the film and the film's journey. Now, again, this might be something that you sort of study in your own time, because we could be here all day on the ins and outs of co-production, but I think it's useful at least to look at what's required in a co-production, particularly as it seems that most of you are new to it, although of course not new to production. There are a number of requirements that actually, even in an unofficial co-production, these main provisions in a way tell you the difference between what we would call a co-production and the way that, for example, the UK might work with the US. So it is very much about joint participation, coming together from the producers onwards to make the film, with the balance of filmmaking, which tends to get determined as spend, you know, the percentage of budget represented by people, goods and services from each of the countries that are co-producing, and the finance that they're bringing to the picture. So those are the main parameters. Obviously, you need to look in detail at the particular treaty that you're looking at to see where the requirements are, and also perhaps the flexibilities. You know, not all films by any means fit into a particular box which fits particular percentages, and by and large the treaties are flexible enough to allow a little bit of flexibility if creatively it's in the interest of the project. In the UK, I guess the BFI is a bit like Telefilm Canada. We also certify the films by and large. Our government department, which is the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, remains the competent authority, and you would see their name on any of the UK's co-production treaties, and they are our sponsor department within government. They're brilliant people, but the day-to-day process of certification is handled by the BFI. So unless something is getting a bit tricksy, you're unlikely to come into contact with the government department. So right now the UK has 10 bilateral treaties. So Australia, yes, we also have a treaty with Australia. Canada, thank goodness. France, India, Israel, Jamaica, Morocco, New Zealand, the Palestinian territories and South Africa. We've got 2 pending treaties. We're expecting the treaty with China to be ratified this autumn, and Brazil hopefully in the not too distant future, but we don't have a time frame for that, unfortunately, at the moment. And we're also signatories to the European Convention on Cinematographic Co-Production. So other than with our dear friends in France, if you're co-producing between the UK and another European country, that's the agreement that could be used either bilaterally or multilaterally to work with other European partners. Moving on, now again, I mean, I'm squinting just to look at this slide. Again, it's here really for your reference, but very important point. There are 2 main ways of qualifying as a British film. One is under a treaty, and the other is under the cultural test. If you qualify under a treaty, you do not need to use the cultural test, but it can be an alternative means of making, as you would say, an unofficial co-production. It's a points-based test, and it's testing the cultural content of the film. So it can be. Well, if we look at, for example, this slide, it's the majority of the points are available for actually elements in the script. Funnily enough, rather unlike the French system, it's not making a judgment about, you know, quite how much sex you put in the film or otherwise. You know, obviously we are British, so we don't like too much of that sort of stuff. Don't believe that for a moment. But it's actually about where the film is set, so not where you are shooting the film, which nationality the characters are, so not the actors but the characters, the language of the film, where you're rewarded for a percentage of the film being in an indigenous language of the UK. Obviously, in the most cases, that's the English language, and where the underlying material comes from. So that might be the source material being a novel written by somebody from the UK or somebody who's resident in the UK, even if that underlying material has then been adapted into a screenplay by somebody who isn't British. So that's really what we mean by, well, I mean, all of this is cultural content because, of course, the makeup of the crew of the film is also, of course, part of its cultural makeup. But the majority of points reside within that. Now, what's really important to say is that whilst this system has been in place since 2007 with a very sort of British focus on the script elements, even though always the Europeans making the film will count with the same number of points, the entire test is going to be more European very soon. So in fact, if the script has been written by somebody French, then that will get you just as many points as it will if it's somebody British. And that's true for any country in the EU. So yeah, that's great news for flexibility, and it also means potentially that for countries with whom we do not have a co-production treaty, and frankly even some of those where we do, if this test alone is, it can be a more flexible way of qualifying that can require you to prove less to the competent authorities, and it's an arrangement that we see with partners around the world. So actually, if you're looking to work with the UK, sometimes it can be worth looking at both to see what the, if you like, the cost-benefit analysis is of qualifying this way or under a co-production treaty. It's all on our website, by the way, so please don't be writing down all this detail. So to say a few words on the automatic side, if you like, of the British funding system. It's called the UK Film Tax Relief. It is a tax relief. It is administered by our tax authorities, but it acts as a production rebate, in effect, on the spend in the UK. So the key points for eligibility are that you are a British qualifying film, so that can be a co-production or a film qualifying under the aforementioned cultural test, and it's important that the film is intended for theatrical release. So we're not requiring that there is a distributor attached at the point at which you apply for your tax credits, but we do require that the film is in a form that is clearly showing its intention to do theatrical release, and that should be also provable through the contracting on the film. I'll say at this point that, particularly with regard to Canada and any of those treaties where we where TV is allowed, Australia as well, we do now have a high-end TV tax credit. So that is a completely separate system. It isn't the UK Film Tax Relief that you would be applying to, but the system looks really similar. So whilst this type of rebate is testing the theatrical intent, there is potentially, for those of you that aren't purely working in film, another way to find a reason to come and work in the UK and have a tax relief that benefits you in the production.
A lot of money in television? Still?
A lot of money in what sense?
For development?
Well, we at the BFI don't support the development of TV. We are purely about theatrical film. So in the sense that there are commissioners and that there are production companies who are really going great guns. We have a very successful local TV industry, and co-production is absolutely part of that picture. So it would be more a case of going to those companies to seek out development funding. But the picture's pretty healthy there, and it's obviously had a bit of a boost also from our high-end TV tax credit. So I think it's possible, but I'm not the person to talk to about it. I'm afraid I'm just all about film. Thank you. Thank you. The relief is based upon most of the expenditure of the film. It's probably too much detail for now, but let's say it's based upon the spend incurred by the UK production company, which is obviously going to mean that in a co-production, you're only looking at what that company has incurred, because it's the corporation tax return of the UK co-producer, or the full producer in the case of the cultural test, that is having their books administered and that will receive the check back from our tax authorities. So do be aware that that's where it's really critical to understand that it's a tax rebate as opposed to a production rebate, that you are working through that corporation tax return. As I say, it's worth, or maybe I haven't even yet, the rate of rebate is 25% for films that are budgeted under £20 million, which I guess is most people in this room. Once you get over £20 million, the rate of rebate reduces to 20% on every pound spent on the soil of the UK. And it's what's called core expenditure, so that the definition of core expenditure is your production budget, but stripped out of the usual exclusions. So it's shown the bond doesn't count, but you know those speculative costs of development do not count. The minute that you are in a lovely taxi sort of language, it's purposive costs. So those that you are incurring because you know you are making the film through to the completion of the film, but devoid of the costs onward of the exploitation of the film. So, you know, obviously you could take a look at the detail of that if you needed to. And then within the core production spend, you will get the rebate on what is called the UK core expenditure. So it's all those costs, but defined by those that are used or consumed on the soil of the UK. So it is entirely possible that you could have a director from the States or Australia or Canada who is coming to work in the UK, and for the percentage of time that they're working on the film, as long as they're contracted and paid by the UK company, that is called UK core expenditure as far as we're concerned. So in that regard, it's quite an inclusive form of definition. It goes above and below the line, so it can net very high as long as you are working in the UK. For co-production, of course, the quid pro quo there is that if you are taking British talent crew services outside of the UK, you do not get your tax rebates on those costs. So that obviously is a careful budget exercise to do. And when you're looking at whether or not the UK is going to make sense for you, it's obviously the primary consideration as far as the tax credit's concerned.
It says up to 25%. Does the percentage change depending on the region, or?
Well, the language up to is based upon the fact that the maximum you could get if 100% of your core expenditure was UK expenditure, you would only get the 25% on the first 80%, because under European law we need to allow a little bit of a window for the production to go elsewhere in Europe without it being to the detriment of the production. So typically for a purely British film, the core expenditure, we think of it as a kind of 20% rebate, because 25 times 80 will give you 20. Obviously, of that, in the real world, you'll lose a couple more percentage points because some will go out to these exclusions, or you know, a little bit gets lost in translation there. But it doesn't go up or less depending upon where you are in the UK. There might be other sources of funding that come in depending on where you are in the UK, but the rebate is a constant 25%. So again, just to kind of make a few key points about the benefits of it. It is a rebate. It is free money. You do not need to repay it. And it is not capped, by which I mean that it is not capped per production. It's not capped by how many films you make a year, and there's no annual limit on the money. So you know that if you are abiding by all the rules and you've got your certificate, the money is very certainly going to come back to you, which has all sorts of benefits. It means you can go forward in certainty. It keeps, if you need to have a third-party cash flow it for you, it keeps it very reliable and predictable for them, which obviously keeps the value of the lending as low cost as possible. It comes directly back to the production, so you're not looking to a third party, sort of somebody with a tax liability. Obviously, it is paid retrospectively. The UK tax system is quite flexible, so you can make interim claims for it, which can help minimise the amount that you need to borrow against it, because perhaps something can come back in post-production. But it is, you know, quite a flexible system, and it's, as I say, it's a well-worn track now, so it comes back pretty quickly. So that's a tax credit. We could have questions now, or we could move on to another source of funding. Save it all for the end. I don't know what you think. Should we just keep going?
We just keep going and
keep
save
going.
it for the end.
Okay, very good. So moving on to the selective side, which I guess it's not exactly a direct mirror of the Avance sur Recette or the Aide au Cinéma du Monde that Julien is talking about, but in a sense it mirrors it in the fact that this is where real human beings have an opinion on your project. The BFI Film Fund is a national fund for the UK. We're funded by the National Lottery, and our money is in the form of equity. So we make a number of investments a year, between 20 or 25 at the moment on the production side, of which I would say about 25 to 30% are in any given year co-productions, and I'll say a little bit more about our minority funding in a moment. So actually the good news is we're getting a little bit more money every year to make films, and there you have it. It's there for production, it's there for script development. You come to us for a single project. In fact, anyone who has a European production company is entitled to come to us. Typically a British producer is the one who will come, because of course we can only support British qualifying films and co-productions, so it's obviously going to make sense that it's the British producer on the co-production that comes to us. The BFI Film Fund also looks after, in a broader sense, the talent development strategy for the UK. So we also have a talent network. So if any of you are working with British directors and writers who have not yet made a feature film, go to our website and check out our talent network, because it's a fantastically resourced team of people and a funding allocation that is there to really help push the development of those talents at the early stage in their career. That's what I'll say for that for now. You'll see just a few titles for you here, some of which are in this wonderful Festival of Toronto, including 71, The Riot Club, Pride, Mr. Turner. Actually, I think most of these films were at Toronto last year if they weren't at this one. We are proud to be working with, on the one end, the great luminaries of British cinema, Mike Leigh, Ken Loach, and first-timers and people who are really making a very distinctive and wonderful creative splash on the world. So Matthew Warchus, who's here with Pride, very, very well-respected, brilliant theatre director who's made his first film, and it got a 10-minute standing ovation when it played here 3 days ago. There are many, everything here. Lorna Sherfy's The Riot Club. Actually, Lorna is probably the one truly foreign name on this list. She's obviously Danish, but her film The Riot Club played here a couple of days ago, and again, that's had great acclaim. So you can see that we are looking to work with really exceptional talent, be it first-timers. Destiny Ekaraga is another theatre talent who's just made her first film, which is brilliant. Amma Asante's second film, Belle, opened here in Toronto last year and went absolutely gangbusters. It's had a wonderful success in the States. So we're always director-driven, but we're looking to work with people at every stage in their career. And there you have it. We're very keen to have those films play on the international stage as well as play strongly at home. Yeah, just a few more words on our priorities and how that money tends to shake down. It's about 30% of the films, I would say, that happen to be co-productions, but it's not as if we're looking typically at the films and the applications as they come in to see, well, gosh, you really must do some more of those co-productions. We're looking at it from really the other end of this telescope, if you like. Do we fall in love with the talent mix? Are we convinced that this is something that makes sense as a film and that creatively has something distinctive and interesting and bold to say, and are these talents that we're excited about? Now, because actually it's quite a limited amount of money, I would say, given the size and scale of the UK industry and the call on our funding, you'll see, from that previous list, we are very, very British filmmaker heavy, which is, it's really what we're there to do. But we do acknowledge as well that makes it quite difficult for co-productions, because if the director isn't from the UK, it immediately gives us an issue with how we can prioritise them. So as of last April, we've set aside a part of the fund to prioritise international directors who've already made a splash somehow, be it a critical success or a commercial success perhaps, who are looking to engage with the UK and looking to engage with them from a creative standpoint. So we're able, for a certain amount of projects a year, to sort of put aside our purely British hat and support people. So the most recent example of that would be, I'm not sure if you know the director Yorgos Lanthimos, who's a leading light in Greek cinema. He came to prominence with, for me, I first came into contact with him through Dogtooth, which is an extraordinary film. And he's just made his first English language film. It's called The Lobster. It's in post-production at the moment. It's a 5-way European co-production, and the UK elements are some cast, a couple of the really key heads of department. And for us, that really was a really good signifier of what we want the UK to be as a co-production partner. We're a very creative nation, and we are actually working in a very market-driven context. We're lucky enough to have a language that travels, and that some key partners and territories around the world share as well. An amazingly rich talent pool, front of camera and behind the camera. We have screenwriters who are writing in that English language, but even if they're not, as they sometimes don't, with very, very strong storytelling instincts, which can really help films travel. So, the UK is possibly not the place to come if you're looking for an easy route to soft money, but if you're looking to work with talent and to help a filmmaker to get to the next stage in their career, or find something in talent that means that the production is one way or another being enhanced. Those are the kind of projects that we're looking for our minority co-production strand. So not the kind of conversations where you're looking for that last 20% of your budget and the post could go to any number of territories and maybe you could chuck a couple of HODs their way. That's not really the kind of conversation we want to be having. So we've given three clear priorities, which really are just those that I mentioned. We like to be involved very much with, thank you, new talent. So if you could say that your film is going to give an opportunity to somebody who's just breaking through, then that's also quite persuasive to us. But as I say, it's mostly about, tell us how the UK element in your film is elevating it creatively or commercially, and then those are the ones that we really want to hear from. So moving on from the BFI, the other cornerstones of the public funding landscape are the two public broadcasters, BBC Films and Film 4, really, but both of whom have a good number of films here too. We co-invest with them all the time. Their money tends to take the form of a sort of equity license fee split. Again, they're both very filmmaker-driven, very content-driven. They both have end users who are, of course, the UK public. So that obviously has to be taken into account when you're approaching them. And to be perfectly honest with you, you're much more likely to get a hearing if you're already working with a British producer, because they are, they have a public remit and they're very, very strong on British talents, but they're much more likely to be able to take an interest in the project if it's put to them from someone in the UK, because of course they're also there to support the British producing community. So I would say that if you're if you think that there's an angle for a broadcaster, then I would have it through the medium of a UK producer to get to them. But it's very important to know that they are there. You are doing very well if you've got them on board. They are looking for prestigious filmmaker projects that again would play in the major film festivals, as well as having a real interest from a UK audience at home. And I mentioned again, key funders in the public funding landscape, the national regional agencies, so Creative Scotland, Film Agency for Wales, Northern Ireland Screen, all have funding. Creative England now a little bit too. Film London doesn't have pure production funding that you can apply to. They do an awful lot of talent schemes, and they're brilliant people, very much around to help you make your film. And the one that I haven't mentioned here, because I guess it doesn't have a sort of national status, but it is Screen Yorkshire, which has secured an awful lot of European development funding, which can work as match funding. And again, we co-invest with them as well. They need market money to match their funding, so it works for a particular type of projects. But again, very, very interesting people to investigate. Now, obviously, all of these people have a local bias, both talent and spend. None of them have the sort of how can I put it, territorial effects that one sees, whereby there's a pure percentage that you spend this and you get that. They are human beings who want to have a conversation with you about the project, and it's all highly selective and highly in demand. So again, it is very much about the quality of the project that you have. And I think I'm done.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting. Great. We have about 5 or 6 minutes left, I think, for some questions here. So if anyone has, can you microphone over this way, please? You have a microphone? Maybe up here. This lady here.
Hi, I'd just like to ask, how far down the packaging routes do you need to be to apply for the fund money with respect to creative elements, directors, cast, all that kind of stuff?
Do you mean production or development?
Production.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we would we can take a view depending upon what the talent is involved in the film. So we are much more likely to, for let's say a first-time filmmaker, to be sort of less interested in the other packaging elements than we would for something that is a very, very established filmmaker. So I think the key thing is that for production we'd expect the script to be the shooting script. Exactly as Gina said, in the case of come to us when you are ready and confident in the creative materials, which effectively will mean the script, because if that is not in good shape, it's not, it's too competitive to take a chance on that. And then with regard to cast, etc., it's case by case, really. I mean, if you came to us with a sort of really super commercial project that was absolutely going to be cast driven, then to know that you've got some of those elements lined up is really important, and to know that you've got some other partners on board is really useful to us. Something of a balancing act with us, because we would struggle to be the first in as a funder in a really commercial project. So we'd expect you as a producer to have gone out and really looked across the landscape, and then to look and tell us where you think the BFI fits into that funding plan and a sort of partnership plan. If we feel that you've got already so much in place, I mean, if you've got sort of, you know, Keira Knightley and Colin Firth sort of stitched up, then probably we would struggle to make a case for being in the film, because the market's going to help you there. We need to know that we're needed. The money's in too short supply to be in projects that we would love, but don't, you know, somebody else can fund that. So that, I would say, on that, in that regard, for something that is more art house or that is less cast driven, then it's as long as we felt, I suppose, that within your strategic proposal it made that you had a reason for not having approached cast at the point at which we were being asked to come aboard, then it, you know, then that would be okay. And for a first-time feature director, we really appreciate that sometimes we have to be the first in, because it's the only way really that going out to cast and agents is going to, you know, you're going to need us to give you confidence to go and get on with the process.
Take one back here. Thanks.
Hi, just a quick question about talent qualifying as British. Is there a residency requirement, or is citizenship enough?
Well, I mean, it depends who you're asking, actually. I mean, if you're talking about the certification process, then if somebody has if you're doing a UK-French co-production, you've got somebody who has a British passport but is living in France, and they would be considered French as far as we're concerned, because residency trumps nationality. If you're making a UK-Danish film and they're living in France but they have a British passport, they're British. So that's a technical side of certification. With regard to the UK, to look at it from a completely different perspective, if you have somebody who's living in California but has a British passport and you want them to direct the film, because we are a talent development agency as much as anything, the fact of their being in a different country and not necessarily that engaged with British culture is not going to help us prioritize. I wouldn't say that it's not, but with the last thing we are is some kind of, you know, tick box requirement on talent. There's so much talent sort of living in the UK, engaging with it, being culturally part of that fabric, because film is a collaboration after all. It's not just about you know, this person, that person. So I would say that it's, you know, it's all possible, but it's a much more organic assessment as far as a film fund is concerned. Thanks.
Great. We have someone here.
Hi. Allow me to give you a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
A British producer with an American director, film set in the States. First-time director. What do you say?
I would say the last time we supported an American director was Robert Altman. It's really, I mean, it sounds really harsh, but I guess it's important to say. I mean, you know, technically a film could qualify as British, I guess, with an American director, but I would struggle to think in that instance how the film is going to qualify. So number one, how do we, can the film qualify? But the second thing, quite honestly, is that with the call on our money all across the world, with all of our co-production treaties and with our indigenous talent base, the chances of us being able to prioritize an American director, particularly one who hasn't proven himself because he's a first-timer, really unlikely.
Do you have Colin Firth and Keira Knightley?
Yeah.
Is there any other questions up here? There's someone behind the post. Right there. This gentleman here.
I have a similar scenario, except it's a little, throws a few more wrinkles in the mix. What if the director is American and dual resident or Canadian as well? And also is of African descent. So I know that there's been some recent talk in terms of initiatives going on. Idris Elba and some others have been a part of some things recently. So on the cast side, it would be people like Idris Elba or Chiwetel Ejiofor. They would probably be paying Americans, but there is an African component.
Okay, so yeah, well, look, I mean, there's a few sort of questions or points in there. One is that we're absolutely, we've just launched our 3 ticks policy, if you like. So every production that comes to the Film Fund is going to front of camera, behind the camera, within the production company, need to show us what they're doing to help really look at how diverse the film can be, by which we mean underrepresented ethnic gender groups, and of course, the typical things. So in that regard, obviously, a project that is going to, well, actually, we would take the project on its own merits, and it's after the process of having made that decision that we can say, okay, so what do you got? So the two processes are somewhat distinct. I think the issue with that is that for a Canadian director, again, the US director thing is quite specific to the US, and it goes back to the point I was making about, are we needed? American talent has another route to market. So a very small European public fund like the BFI is always going to struggle to fund Americans who we would say have another route. Canadians, obviously, let's just assume that the US identity is a red herring because it's somebody living and working out of Canada doing that. Then I guess it's the minority co-production route. We'd be looking at whether or not we felt that they were extremely talented, whether we liked the story. If in effect they are making a film that is culturally American, because the actors are playing Americans, it's set there, the question for us with the minority fund would be, well, what really is the argument for the UK's cultural involvement? It could be that it's Idris Elba and that there's some talent there that is really elevating the project. So we could look at it. But again, the American issue is that, if a film is working with American culture, there is clearly a sort of North American link there. We would be asking ourselves, does this film need us?
Yeah, without getting too much detail and monopolizing it, there's an African component that is very important to the story. And it checks a lot of boxes in terms of the ability to do a real international co-production with Canada, UK, Americans, and South Africa.
Okay. Well, look, what I'd say is that, you have a Canadian director, let's leave it at that, in a project that could be a British qualifying film with some creative elements from the UK. It's something that we could absolutely take a look at. You would need to get a British producer to come to us because you're not a European production company. I take it. I mean, maybe you have one, but that's how we look at it, and then we'd take a look.
Thank you.
I'm getting the wrap-up signal, so
Okay.
sorry to interrupt your question, but thank you so much, Julian and Isabel. If anyone wants further information, I'm sure the websites have all the information provided on your presentation, cnc.fr and bfi.org.uk. All right, thank you so much. And
Thank you, Paula.